Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time, Masechet Shevuot. This is our 5th class, and today we are going to be reviewing Daf 28 through 34. And we're in the middle of discussing types of oaths. As we said last week, right, we have different types of oaths. And today we are going to begin with discussing I would say the most common type of oath, which is what's called Shevuot Habitui, which basically is what we discussed last week: I will or I won't, right? Or I did or I didn't. So the Gemara, as we can understand, and the whole Masechet is really about this, is trying to understand what does a person mean when they say a certain thing. So the Gemara says that if someone says lo uchal, which in Hebrew means I won't eat, it literally means I won't eat even a small amount, right? A kazait, right? An olives amount. But if you say lo ochlena, I guess the best way to translate it is I'm not going to eat this. When I'm saying I'm not going to eat this, the Gemara says it means the whole thing, right? I'm not going to eat this cake, right, will imply I'm not going to eat the whole cake. But when I say, right, I'm not going to eat cake, it means I'm not going to eat even a little bit of cake. So then the Gemara says, if, let's say, you left a little piece of the cake left, right here they're actually talking about bread, but for me, cake makes more sense. But if, let's say, you're talking about a loaf of bread and you leave a little bit left, so then as long as you leave a little bit left, you can nullify the oath. We haven't really discussed this yet, but we did discuss it in Masechet Nedarim, which is that in the mechanism where I can make something forbidden to me, I also have the ability to nullify the oath that I took, right? We did it in the context of vows, right? If someone takes a vow and then they say, I didn't realize it was going to be so hard, or somebody made me do it, or I didn't realize what I was saying, you can go to a rabbi and they can nullify the vow. So the same thing here, right? If you say, I'm not going to eat this loaf and you leave bread and you leave over a little bit, so then you can nullify the oath. But if you said, I'm not going to eat bread, right? So then you are already liable for transgressing your oath when you ate even a small amount. So once you are liable for transgressing your oath, you can't now say, take away my oath, right? So that doesn't work. So that was the bottom of Daf 27. So Daf 28 tells us that if you say lo ochlena, right, again, I'm not going to eat this loaf, right, then even if a smaller amount exists, you can still nullify it, because again, as we said, you meant to say, I'm not going to eat the entire thing. So if you eat half of it, you haven't violated your oath because you didn't eat the whole thing yet. And therefore, you can nullify it even if there is a little bit left. Let's go to the concept of Nazir, which is perfect because it's in this week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, we have the concept of the Nazirite, the person who takes upon themselves to not drink wine and to grow out their hair. So let's say a person takes upon themselves two niziruyot, right? Like 2 sets of being a nazir, the minimum amount of time, or if you don't say how long you want to be a nazir. So if you don't say it, so it's 30 days. So if you take on double, that would be 60 days. So let's say you did 30 days and then you set aside your sacrifice, because at the end of being a Nazir, you have to bring a sacrifice. And then let's say you nullified the first set of being a Nazir, right? The first 30 days. So then that now goes away, and you already did 30 days. So we're going to look at the 30 days that you just did as if you did the second set, right? Because we nullified the first set, we got rid of that, and you already did 30 days. So it's as if you did the second set. And then the Gemara says you can even bring the sacrifice that you set aside for the first set, and you can bring it as the second set. And then the Gemara says, back to our loaf of bread, that even if you ate the whole loaf of bread, you can still nullify the oath because you didn't bring the sacrifice, or you didn't get lashes, so you didn't get punished yet, and therefore, even though you were liable, you weren't punished yet for it, or you didn't get atonement for it. Therefore, you can still nullify the oath. Let's say someone says, I won't eat this loaf of bread if I eat that loaf of bread. So this is what's called a conditional oath. You took one oath, but it's conditional on a second oath, and it only exists because of the second one. And therefore, let's say, okay, so now again, remember we said I won't eat this loaf if I eat that one, right? So there are two loaves of bread. We'll call them 1 and 2, right? So let's say you ate the first loaf of bread by accident, right? Bishogeg. And then you ate the second loaf on purpose, right? You said, I don't care about the oath I took, I'm eating it anyway. So you would be exempt because you didn't remember the first time when you ate the first loaf of bread, you didn't remember that there was an oath going on. And therefore, even though the second one was done on purpose, you're not liable because you didn't realize that that oath went into existence. But if the first one you ate on purpose, and then the second one you ate by accident, so then you will be liable because you remembered that first one when you ate it. Let's say you ate both of them by accident, so then you're exempt because you didn't realize what you were doing. If you did both of them on purpose, then you're liable because you broke your oath, right? Because you did it on purpose. But if you ate them out of order, remember he said, I won't eat this. I won't eat this? Yes. I won't eat this if I eat this, right? So let's say he eats this one first, and then he eats this one, right? So then if he did it out of order, there is a machluket if he would be liable for that. So then, if you made an oath that both are conditional for each other, right? So then it doesn't matter which one you did first, right? If you ate each loaf on purpose about itself, but by accident for the other one, then you would be exempt. So again, it gets a little complicated, but the idea is we're playing with this concept of mezid, like doing it on purpose, and bishogeg, doing it by accident. Now again, for an oath of this type, you would be liable if you do it on purpose. But if you did it by accident, you would not be liable because you didn't remember at the time that you did it. Okay. If you forgot about that condition, then you would be exempt. Remember again, because if you forgot about the oath, you would be exempt. Let's say a person says, I didn't eat. And then he says it again, I didn't eat. So I didn't eat that loaf of bread yesterday. So then you would only be liable for one. Because even though you repeated the words, you'd still only be liable for one. Then the Gemara says, no, for a past oath, then for a past oath, you would be liable for both because you're lying, right? You're saying I didn't. So now, right, you're lying and you'd be liable. But if it was for the future, I won't and I won't, you'd only be liable for one. Okay, so now we're going to get into the idea of double language, but not exactly double language, right? Let's say someone says, I won't eat 9 figs and I won't eat 10 figs. Now, both are valid, and if you ate 10, you'd be liable for 2. And because, right, and then the Gemara says, no, maybe only in this case, because 10, right, includes 9, and you already made an oath of 9. So therefore, because of that, you'd only be liable 1 and not 2. Let's say you did it the opposite. I won't eat 10, and then I won't eat 9. So now for sure, you're only liable 1. Because again, once you said 10, you already included 9. Or no, it's seen as 2 separate oaths, and therefore you're liable for both of them. Again, liable would mean that you would have to bring a sacrifice. Okay, Daf 29 tells us, the Mishnah says, okay, so the oaths that we were discussing, again, were called Shevuot bitui. When I make an expression, and that's either I will or I won't, or I did or I didn't. Now we have a new type of oath. In Hebrew, it's called Shevuot. Again, the word Shevuah, oath. Shevuot shav. Shav means in vain. What does it mean that I take an oath in vain? Right? It means that you're changing something that everybody knows. Right? I take an oath that my name is Sam. Everyone knows that my name is not Sam, so that would be an oath in vain. Right? You say something is stone, but it's real, or that it's gold, but it's really stone. A man is a woman, which I thought that was interesting, or something impossible, right? So yesterday I saw a camel fly from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, right? Everyone knows that that's not true. So, right, another option, another type of oath is where witnesses say, I swear to not testify for you, right? There's no such thing, right? Or I swear to not keep a mitzvah, right? I won't sit in a sukkah, or I'm not going to shake the lulav, right? All of these are oaths in vain because these are not oaths that you can take. Right? And if you do it on purpose, you get lashes. If you do it accidentally, right, bishogeg, or right, you didn't mean it, so then you're exempt, right? You do not bring a sacrifice. Let's say you say, I will eat this loaf, right? So that's shvuat bitui. That's what we mentioned in the beginning. And then you say, I won't eat it. So now that's an oath in vain, because once you take an oath that you will eat it, you can't take an oath that you won't eat it, right? That's not possible because you already took an oath that is obligating you to eat it, right? So again, if he eats it, he's liable for the shvuat shav, right? The one in vain. And if he doesn't eat it, so then it's a shvuat bitui. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain, right? The thing that you are claiming must be known to at least 3 people, right? So I'm assuming, I hope that at least 3 people know that my name is Tamara, right? If nobody knows what my name is, right? So, I don't know, whatever, right? If nobody knows what I'm talking about, so then that's not an oath in vain. because you don't know, right? If I discover something new and I tell you, I swear this is something new, if nobody knows, so then it's not seen as an oath in vain. Right? If not, let's say nobody knows, but I'm lying, so then it's a different type of oath, which is called Shevuot Sheker, right? An oath that you're lying, right? Sheker means to lie. Again, let's say someone says, I took an oath that I saw a camel fly. Right now, the Gemara says, wait a minute, maybe he saw a big bird flying, and not Big Bird, the yellow one, but a big bird, and he called it a camel, right? Oh my God, I saw this camel fly by, but really, it's right. He didn't mean camel, right? Let's say he meant a really big bird. So if he thinks that, right, maybe he thought it was a camel, right? If he believes what he's saying, then it's not a shvuat shav. It is not seen as a vain oath. Now, if the court makes a person swear, it's based on the thoughts of the court and not based on the thoughts of the person's own intentions, right? So if I say, you need to swear that something happened on Tuesday, right? And you say, I swear it happened on Tuesday. Now, let's say you really thought it was Tuesday, but really it was Monday. That doesn't work, meaning in a court of law, if you say Tuesday, it means Tuesday. It doesn't matter what you thought, right? So it has to be what everybody thinks. Okay, then we talked about taking an oath to do a mitzvah. So the Gemara says that the Mishnah had said that that's not a valid oath because Moshe made the Jewish people take an oath to keep the mitzvot, right? We just had the holiday of Shevuot where we celebrated receiving the Torah. The Torah is a book of laws that Hashem gave us, and we committed to keeping those laws. And that is based on the knowledge of God and of Moshe, and it's not based on you, right? You can't say, oh, I really thought it meant to do this, right? It doesn't work like that. And therefore, you can't nullify the oath that you've already taken. Okay. Next, the next Mishnah says, a shvuat bitui, again, the I will, I won't, I did, I didn't, can be made by a man or a woman, someone who's related to you, someone who's not related to you, people who are valid to testify in court or people who are not. It could be made in court or outside of court, as long as you said it by yourself, right? You come up with what you want to say, then that's valid. And as we said, if you do it on purpose, you get lashes. If you do it by accident, you bring a korban ole v'yored. Again, the sacrifice that we mentioned at the beginning of the Masechet. Shvuat shav, the one in vain. Some say it's the same. Some say that it's if you do it by accident, you are exempt, right? You didn't realize, you don't know. Let me start again. For Shevuat Shav, everything that I just mentioned for Shevuat Bitui is the same for Shevuat Shav, meaning for a vain oath, anybody can take that oath, meaning you shouldn't. But if it's a man or a woman inside court, outside of court, it doesn't matter. If you do it on purpose, you're liable for lashes. If you do it by accident, in this case, you'd be exempt, right? I thought it was a camel flying, but really it was a stork. So then you would not be liable, and you do not bring a sacrifice. If someone tells you that you should take an oath, and then you say amen, so you are liable. Meaning, if you say amen, it means you are accepting upon yourself the oath. You don't have to say, I, Tamara, swear, etc. If someone else says, right, you must take this oath, and I say amen, then that is right, that works, right? Think about in court. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, right? And you say yes, or I do, that's enough. You don't have to say, I swear to, no, right? Interestingly, that in the army, when they swear allegiance, even though the religious boys affirm as opposed to swear, they actually say the whole, they say it, which is it's just very interesting. Okay, so the Gemara explains that amen after an oath is as if you took the oath yourself. And the reason that our Mishnah said all the things that it just said, like all the parameters, is, and it's going to tell you now, but in 30 seconds, we're going to read the real Mishnah. But there's another type of oath, which is called Shevuot ha'edut, right? Edut means testimony, right? So an oath that's taken by witnesses, that we're going to see is only taken by men, and they can't be related to the defendant, and it can only be someone who is valid to be a witness, and it's only taken in court and in front of court. And again, if someone makes you swear and you say amen, then it is valid. And with that, we finish the 3rd chapter. And now we're going to begin the 4th chapter with the concept of the oath of testimony, which is what we just mentioned. So Daf 30 tells us, right, we have a Mishnah. Sorry, one second. Okay, so the Mishnah tells us, what is Shevuot ha'edut? Again, the oath of testimony. Let's say a person knows testimony for somebody else, and if they testify for this, then that person will win the case, right? And will win money. We'll see. And then the witness says, you know what? I don't really know what you're talking about. I have no idea, right? And then it turns out that he lied. So then that person has to bring a sacrifice, a korban olev yored, right? They have to bring a sacrifice for lying, for saying that they don't have testimony when really they have testimony, right? So let's say the case is, right, you saw, right, Reuven saw Shimon lend money to Levi, right? And now Levi says, I don't know you anything. So Shimon comes to Reuven and says, remember, Reuven, when you saw me lend the money, I need you to come with me to court and tell them so that I can collect the money. And Reuven says, nah, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? But really he knows. Then that would be transgressing this vow, and he would be liable. Okay, who is in this category? As we just said, men, but not women. Again, because it's called Shevuot ha'edut, it's testimony. And as we know, the only people that can testify are people who are valid witnesses, right? So men, not women, someone who's not related to you, right? If it's your brother can't come with you to court and testify. That is not a valid witness. And you have to come on your own. And we'll see, one opinion is that it has to be in front of court, or it could even be not in front of court. But if other people make you swear, that has to be in front of court. Or either way, it always has to be in court, again, because we're discussing testimony. Again, if you do it on purpose, you're liable. Or if you were shogeg, if you were not sure about the oath, but remembered the testimony, so then you're liable, meaning you knew that Shimon lent money to Levi, but you didn't really mean to take the oath or something like that. Then you would still be liable because you lied. But if you forgot the testimony, like you really don't remember that Shimon lent money to Levi, right? Sometimes that happens that we don't remember things, then you'd be exempt. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, right? There's a verse that says, 2 men stood in front of court, right? So this is about testimony. It proves that it could only be men and not women. the Gemara says, well, maybe we're talking about the litigants who are standing in court, not necessarily the witnesses. The Gemara says no, because it specifically says two, and we know that there could be more than two litigants, but there can only be two witnesses, or meaning two is the number of witnesses that are valid witnesses. So the Gemara says that you might have thought that it's not appropriate for women to come to court as litigants, right? It's maybe not modest. The Gemara says no. If there's a woman who needs to appear in court, she should go to court and fight for her rights or for whatever is going on. Since we're talking about conduct in court, we're going to talk about what's proper conduct in court and what's improper conduct in court from both sides. So we'll see. Right? Litigants have to stand before the court. You can't give honor to one litigant over the other, right? So it can't be that one stands and one sits. Either they both stand or they both sit. It has to be equal, right? And the Gemara discusses the verse that says that you must judge your fellow righteously. And this is, the pshat, the simple meaning is we're talking about in court. What does it mean? Right, b'tzedek tishpot et amitecha. What is righteousness? So we have to make sure that, right, as we say, the concept of blind justice, right? You cannot show favoritism to anybody in court. That is not appropriate. And therefore, right, you have to be very careful that the judge judges fairly, right? The witnesses have to stand, the judges need to sit. And the Gemara gives a case of the wife of Rav Huna came to court, and the judge wanted to stand up for the wife of a sage, right, to give her honor, but you can't show favoritism to anybody in court. So he was the Gemara says how he figured out a way to stand up, but without it looking like he was favoring one litigant over the other. One litigant is not allowed to present their case if the other one isn't there. And as we said, if a person knows testimony but isn't asked to go to court, so then you don't have to go to court. And especially here, the Gemara talks about the honor of a person, right? So if it's below their honor to go to court, if the person didn't ask them to come, they don't have to come. However, if it's a chilul Hashem, if it's a desecration of God's name, right? It's it would be a terrible thing. So then you have to go. Because right, your honor is not greater than God's honor. So to uphold God, then you need to go. From here, the Gemara lists 13 laws that we learn from the verse midvar sheker tirchak. One should distance themselves from falsehood. Right? What does that mean? How do we distance ourselves from sheker, from falsehood? So it has a list of 13 things. So I'll try to go through it a little quickly. Right? A judge who isn't sure about his ruling should back down and reconsider. Right? Don't start making things up because you already said something. If you're not sure, take a minute, take a break, and be very sure. Right? Here we're going to talk about the concept of, right, honesty or dishonesty, right? Obviously, one is not allowed to lie. But here the Gemara is telling us, even when something is not a clear lie, right? What we would maybe call a white lie or stretching the truth, that is also not appropriate. And therefore, don't think that if it's, it's a little lie or it's not so bad. The Gemara says, no. We need to make sure that we are honest people, right, across the board. So even if it's maybe a little embarrassing or seems to be not exactly the best time to tell the truth, we should tell the truth. So So the Gemara continues, right? If right, an ignorant student shouldn't sit in front of a judge. If a judge knows that another judge or a witness is lying, you can't rule with him, right? You have to say, wait, something is wrong here. If a judge knows testimony is false, you cannot just give the ruling anyway. You have to call out what is false. Daf 31, a student shouldn't be silent if he sees something about the case, and if he thinks that his teacher is making a mistake, he needs to call it out. Even if you know that your teacher wouldn't lie, if he asks you to testify for him, right, meaning to be dishonest, right? So let's say someone says, listen, I lent so-and-so money, right? You know that I'm very honest. Can you come to court and tell them that you saw me lend the money? The Gemara says no. Even if you know that your teacher's telling the truth, if you weren't there, you cannot give testimony. Right? And even if he says, you know what, just stand there. You don't have to say anything. If it's going to give a false impression, you are not allowed to do it. Again, I think this Gemara is so powerful because sometimes in society, people think, oh, it's not so bad, or it's a little bit of a lie, don't worry. And the Gemara is saying straight out, no, right? Meaning a little bit of lie, big lie, it doesn't matter, it's all a lie. And we need to distance ourselves from falsehood. Right? You can't make a false claim in order to get a person to swear that he owes you money. Meaning, even if the outcome is real, right? Again, let's say someone owes me money, but I'm going to make a false claim to make sure that they pay me. That's not okay, right? It doesn't work. Right, as we said, a judge can't listen to one litigant before the other one gets there, and vice versa. Right, the Gemara says it's not good to send someone else in your place to court, like a power of attorney. It's not smart. And a king or a gambler is not allowed to testify in court. There's a machloket about swearing outside of court by himself, meaning that nobody's making him do it, right? And what's he swearing? I don't have any testimony for you. So we learn about the oath of the edim, of the witnesses, from the oath of collateral, right? We haven't seen this yet. This in Hebrew it's called Shevuot HaPikadon, right? Someone says, remember yesterday I dropped off my camera, I left it with you for collateral, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Really, you want to steal it and keep it for yourself. So that's called, right? And he says you have to take an oath, right? That's called Shevuot HaPikadon. So we're going to learn, right, different laws, one from the other. So the Gemara says we learn about oaths of witnesses from the oath of the person who is holding the collateral. And then the question is, do we learn only one thing from it, or do we learn everything from it? Okay. The Gemara says that, that if you are liable, if you did this on purpose, right, you swore falsely, you also need to, if you did it on purpose, you also need to bring a sacrifice. And this is, right, for on purpose or by accident, right? So again, now we define what does that mean, right? By accident means I know the testimony, but I don't know the punishment of if I swear falsely. And on purpose means I even know the punishment of if I swear falsely and I still do it anyway. Okay, the next Mishnah tells us what is this testimony of, right, oath of witnesses. A person tells two people to come and testify for him. And they say, right? No, we swear we don't know anything about your case. Or they say, no, we don't want to come. And he says, swear to me that you don't know anything. And they say, yeah, amen, right? So then if it turns out that they're lying, they are liable. Okay, let's say he makes them swear 5 times. I don't believe you, swear again. I don't believe you, swear again. And then they come to court and they admit that they lied. So then they're exempt because they took the oath outside of court. And this is not valid, meaning the only way you'd be liable is if you took the oath in court, right? So again, like we say, right? I swear to tell the whole truth. This is because we're talking about witnesses. The oath needs to be taken in court. But if they denied it in court, then they would be liable for all of them because they took the oath outside and they deny it in court, then they would be liable for each one. Let's say he makes them swear 5 times in court. You're only liable for one. Again, because it's official, you'd only be liable one time. If both of them denied knowledge of the testimony at the same time, so then they're both liable. But if they did it one after the other, so then only the first one is liable, because we're going to see once the first one drops out, so then there's only one witness left, and then it doesn't matter if he has testimony or not, because one witness is not enough. So he would not be liable. Let's say one witness says, I don't know what you're talking about, and one admits. So then the person who denied is liable. Let's say you have 2 sets of witnesses, right? 2 and 2, and they deny one group after the other. So both are liable because even if one set is out of the picture, I still have another set of 2 witnesses that are valid in court. Okay, that was all the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says, and as we mentioned before, that this is only the case if the testimony that you know can make the person win the case, right? And make him collect money, right? That's going to be very important. But if it has nothing to do with money, so then this category of oaths, right? So you need to swear that you saw me not kill this person. That's not what we're talking about here. It's only about monetary matters. And you have to hear from the person that he wants you to testify, right? If you don't hear from him, even if you know something, so then even if you swear, you're not liable. Okay, Daf 32, if they just swear on their own, because, right, let's say, again, a Reuben, I don't remember who is who, but let's say the person who's the litigant starts running after the witness and he says, well, I see you over there, stop running. I know you have something, right? You know something, right? So let's say, or he doesn't say anything, but he's running after him. So then let's say he swears, but the person didn't say, you have to swear because I know you have testimony. Anything, he's not liable if he lied because he didn't say with words that he's making him swear. Now, if we're talking, so that is for the oath of witnesses, but the oath for a collateral, again, I dropped off the camera yesterday. You said you were going to hold it for me. I say, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Again, we haven't learned that yet. The Gemara likes to bring up things we haven't learned yet, just to keep you on your toes. So for collateral, you don't have to verbalize that he wants him to swear, right? So in that case, if he's running after him and he says, I swear I don't know anything, that would be a valid oath, and you'd be liable if you were lying. Okay. If you deny, again, what you said, I don't have any testimony, and you do that in court, so you are liable, right? This is based on a verse. But if you deny it outside of court, so then you're exempt, because as we said, this has to happen in court. Okay, and there's a special word in the verse that makes you liable for every oath that you take in this category of testimony. And again, it must be speaking about an oath that's outside of court, but denial needs to happen inside court, right? So let's say the witnesses deny at the same exact time, or within, right? The Gemara always likes to ask, what do you mean at the exact same time? There's actually a machloket. Is it possible for someone to do something at the exact same time as someone else, or doing something, right? Is there such thing? Or it means like around the same time, like within a second or two. So the Gemara says within the time it takes to say 2 or 3 words, right? What's called in Hebrew, toch kedei dibur, right? Within, right? So if I say, right, so a big example is I say, let's say I make a bracha and I say, borei pri ha'etz, amin ha'adama, right? So that's toch kedei dibur, right? While I'm still speaking, I correct myself. So then that's valid. That's called, right, at the same time. So then that would be valid. There's a machloket if you're liable, if you deny testimony after the first witness already denied. Remember we said, if one witness denied, then you denying it maybe doesn't do anything, or no, everyone agrees that one witness can make someone take an oath, because there is validity to that one witness. There's a machloket if one witness, which is going to facilitate you to collect money, is as if he's going to help you get the money. And therefore, if he denies it, then he would be liable. So the Gemara now, actually, it's like perfect, because the Gemara also talks about sota, which is also in this week's parsha. This week we're going to read Parshat Naso, and it has Nazir and it has sota. So if you remember sota, right? What happens? 2 witnesses come and say, well, one second. So we have a lot of witnesses or not enough witnesses, which is also an issue. So in sota, let's say one witness who denies testimony that, right, that he saw her sleeping with this other guy, then, right, so sleeping with somebody. So if that one witness, if he lied, he's liable, because again, if he would have testified and he is believed, she would actually lose her ktuva money. So because that witness can cause her to lose money, it becomes a monetary case, and therefore one witness is valid. But if, let's say it's 2 witnesses who witnessed the husband tell the wife, I do not want you seeing Tom anymore, right? I see something is going on. You're not allowed to see him anymore, right? That was called, in Hebrew, that's called kinui. Kinui means he needs to warn her, I don't like this relationship. You cannot see him again. And then if she secludes herself, one witness is enough to make her liable for sota. So if 2 witnesses witness the warning, right, if they deny knowledge, so they're exempt, because even if they testify, she doesn't lose her ktuva yet. She didn't do anything yet. So because there's no monetary ramification, so then that oath would not make them liable, right? But if it's 2 witnesses to seclusion, right, that she went into a room with him, so then it's a machloket if that can cause her to lose the ktuva, and therefore if they would be liable or exempt, right? If a person who's supposed to swear isn't reliable, then the person who is owed the money, right? Usually it's the person who pays takes the oath. I did pay or I didn't pay, right? I owe or I didn't owe. But let's say that person is a liar and we don't believe him. So then the person who is owed the money can swear and take the money. And then, right, so therefore, with witnesses, both the lender and the borrower, right, if they were suspect of lying, if the witness denies testimony, he would be liable because, again, the borrower would have to pay in that case. Okay. Let's say, right, and the Gemara gives a few cases of people who say that a person stole some silver. Then the Gemara tells us that if there's one witness about the death of a woman's husband, we trust that one witness, even though in general we need two witnesses. And therefore, if he lies about that, he would be liable for lying. Right? If he refuses to tell the court, but he told the wife, then he would be exempt because, again, she can then go and testify and collect her ktuva, right? It has to be something that has to do with money. Okay, Daf 33. Again, as we said, if there were two groups of witnesses, they're both liable because even if we knock one out, the other one is still valid. Okay, next Mishnah. We'll use names. Reuven says that Shimon has testimony to help his case about a deposit, a loan, stolen object, and a lost object, right? And, right, all of these things. And Shimon swears, I don't know anything. I don't know what you're talking about. And it turns out that he lied. He's liable only for one sacrifice, because the oath was one oath about multiple things. But if he says, I swear I don't know anything about a loan and a stolen object and a deposit and this, right? And he goes through each one of the things. So then he is liable for each one, right? The first one was, I don't know anything, right? That's one lie. But if I say, I don't know this, and I don't know that, and I don't know that, then you're liable for each one. Let's say he says, I don't know about a deposit of wheat, barley, and spelt. So again, liable for one, because he says, I don't know about that deposit. But if he denied each one, I don't know about a deposit of wheat, and I don't know about the deposit of barley, right? If he does each one, you're liable for each one. Let's say you know that a person is owed damages or half damages or double, right? Kefel, because someone stole something, or 4 or 5, or, right, that's you have testimony that someone hit that person. So then if you lie, you are liable, because we're going to say this is all mammon, it's all money, and therefore, right, it's monetary, and therefore you are liable if you lie. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to talk about what about, right? I understand, right? You owe him $100. That's very clear monetary case. What about when someone owes a penalty, right? A penalty is, right, you owe double. You owe 4 or 5 times, right? You owe more than the value of what you did. Now, is that also seen as the same concept of what we've been talking about till now? The Gemara asks, what about a knas? What about if you have testimony about a penalty, right? So now what's important to understand about a penalty is that if a person comes and admits that they owe a penalty, right, an extra charge, then you're exempt from paying it, right? Obviously, the principal you need to pay, but if you admit and nobody else knew about this penalty, you do not have to pay the penalty, right? But if witnesses come and say you have to pay the penalty, so then you would be liable, right? Even if you admitted beforehand, right? So therefore, one opinion is that if these witnesses lie, they'd be liable because they can cause the person to have to pay. On the other hand, maybe not, because if he admits on his own, he would be exempt from paying. Okay, is it the last Mishnah? Yes, the last Mishnah today says, right, that let's say a person says, you need to testify for me that I'm a Kohen or a Levi, or that person is a Kohen, or that person is a Levi, or that person did something terrible to somebody else. Now, if they lied, they would be exempt because these things do not have monetary value. It's not a monetary case, right? Saying that I'm a Kohen has nothing to do with money. And therefore, or directly, let's say, it doesn't have anything directly to do with money. And therefore, you would not be liable if you lied in this case. Again, you shouldn't lie, but you wouldn't be liable for this. So the Gemara says, right, you have to hear from one of the litigants, and you can't make someone swear that they know testimony about someone else, right? Meaning, I can make you swear that you know something about me. I can't make you swear that you know something about somebody else. It's none of my business, right? The litigant themselves needs to make the person swear. Otherwise, it's not called an oath of testimony. Of course, unless he has the power of attorney, and then it would be valid. So now the Gemara says that, again, this type of oath is only about money. How do we know? So there are 4 different opinions that will prove that this type of oath is only for monetary things. So the first opinion, it says it's based on a verse where it says multiple times, "o," which means or this, and therefore we're going to learn that just like in the oath of testimony, it uses the word "o" a few times, so too in the oath of the deposit, it also says "o," right, or, and a deposit is only about money. Therefore, testimony is only about money. Another opinion is it's based on a verse that says you're sometimes liable for an oath. When is that sometimes? When it has to do with money, you're liable. When it doesn't, you are not. Another opinion is there's a verse that says that you saw, but you didn't know, or you know, but you didn't see. And the Gemara explains that can only be about money, right? So you saw that this person gave that person $100, but you don't know that it's a loan, so you saw, but you don't really know what's going on. Or you know that the person was going to lend them the money, but you didn't see the money change hands. And we'll see that that does not work for, let's say, a capital offense. And the fourth opinion is that you're liable for, again, a deposit and for testimony, and therefore both of them are about money. And right, even though the oath of a deposit is very inclusive, and right, it's very inclusive, but it's only about money. Therefore, testimony, which is less inclusive, right, it has very specific people that can take the oath, should also only be about money. It's like it's a kal vachomer, right? If this, then for sure that. Or right, the daf 34, or it's a Gzeira Shabbat, learned from similar language that has the same word, techta, right? In oath of deposit and testimony, therefore they're both about money. Now the Gemara goes through each one of these things and proves why do they say each one of these things. And again, basically the general idea is that we're going to compare, again, Shevuot Edut, right, the oath of testimony, to the oath of pikadon, of a deposit. And because deposit is only about something that has monetary value, So then for the testimony, the oath of a testimony also is only about monetary things. And with that, we are going to finish for today. We have, I see a few minutes, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
It's not a question, it's a clarification. Well, there were
Yeah.
two basic things you were talking about. One dealt with money, one dealt with infractions and people. And that the second one had two witnesses and the first one had one witness. Was that true? Categories.
Okay, so it was in the same category of an oath for testimony, but it depends what the case is about.
Oh, it could go into money and then just need one.
Exactly. If there is, right, and I mentioned a certain type of case where if one witness is valid and can cause, right, money to change hands in those unique cases, then that one witness would be liable. But if it's a regular case where you need two witnesses, so then if it's just one witness, they would not be liable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Yes.
Yes, Ilanit here. I continue to be completely confused. Like I said last time in this one is just over my head. For some reason, Nadarim seem kind of clear, but this is beyond me. I also get hung up on the language about, the liability, about being liable. He's liable, he's not liable, like I know what that means. I'm used to trying to understand if I'm obligated to bring an offering. It's like, look, if you did it on purpose, you don't even get to participate in that. It was willing and on purpose. You knew what you were doing. Those offerings you bring only because you didn't realize you were doing it or you didn't mean to do it, this sort of thing. So I get confused now with this context, how liability works here. Sometimes it says like, look, if you meant to do it, you're not liable. I mean, it sounds backwards. Can you explain?
Yes. Okay. So liable means that you are obligated to bring a sacrifice. But sometimes, and this is what's interesting, sometimes you are not given the opportunity to bring a sacrifice, meaning it was so egregious that a sacrifice is not enough, right? So therefore, if you do something blatantly on purpose, you might be exempt from a sacrifice because in this context, you are not eligible for atonement through a sacrifice. So that is basically the way. Again, liable would mean you would, again, depending on the case, have to either bring a sacrifice or you would get lashes. Exempt could mean it wasn't your fault, or it was so your fault that, we're going to figure out a different punishment for you, right? You can't bring a sacrifice because, again, sacrifice brings atonement and not everybody gets that. So
there you go. That was very good. Yes, exempt.
Yeah, that helps.
Exempt was very confusing, just as you said, because it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. It could
Correct.
be either to be exempt. No, that's
Correct.
confusing.
It really depends on the case. I think here, and you mentioned with vows, it was clearer because with vows, it was something I choose to take. I will, I won't, right? It was something very clear. I mean, this is also clear, but it's different because with oaths, there are official oaths that one has to take, right? So like this one about testimony, where things become more complicated, right? And then if you lie on purpose versus lying by accident, I think there's a lot of complication here because it's not just, if you remember in Nadarim, there was a lot of discussion. What did you mean when you said this and when you said that? Here, sometimes, as we said, what did the court mean? So there's a lot of nuance also in vows and also in oaths. But I agree with you that this Masechet is quite challenging in terms of the detail and in terms of the nuance. There's a lot of nuance here. Yeah.
Okay. Zohar, do you have a question? Because if you don't, I'm going to.
No, actually, no. I wanted to call out both to Eliza and to Ilanit. You know, your questions bring so much clarity to, you know, to beyond what the Rabbanit has been saying, and it helps so much to hear that, because I know. Thank you.
Just so you should know, I've gotten in the past, a listener emailed me, and she in the past, and she said, I really wish that you didn't turn off the recording for the questions, because I want to feel like I'm part of the class. So I started leaving it on, and I think it's exactly, Zohar, what you're saying, that through the questions, we get to learn so much more. So thank you, everyone, for asking questions.
Just half of one. We just had Shevuot. Remember when it says you shouldn't take the name of the Lord your God in vain?
Yeah.
And I'm scared if I've been teaching it wrong. What does that mean to you, based on your knowledge?
So that's exactly this. You are not allowed.
That's exactly what I thought.
You're not allowed to swear in God's name. We didn't learn it yet, but when you take an oath, it's generally in God's name, which is why, unfortunately, I find that teenagers in America, or people in general, like to say, I swear to God. I swear to God. And I say, no swearing to God. That's exactly what we learned, right? You cannot take God's name in vain. Now, really, it means taking God's name. You're supposed to say God's real name, and you're supposed to really mean it. And these people don't mean it, but it is better to not use the words swear to God, because that is exactly taking God's name in vain. That's exactly this. That's what this Masechet is all about.
Have you ever taught that if you bless food and then don't enjoy in God's name, you say Baruch Atah, and then you don't enjoy it, that's taking God's, you talk, and then is that taking God's name in vain?
Yes, some say.
Okay, good.
There's a term called bracha levatala, right? It's called a blessing that was unnecessary, because when you make a blessing on food, you have to eat it right away. So that would be taking God's name in vain a little bit. I think that the pshat, the simple reading, is what we're talking about. Oaths, that you lie and you say, right, you use God's name in your lie. That's exactly this. Yeah.
Well, thank you, because I'm teaching 10 great-grandchildren. I did not want to do it wrong.
Okay, great. Wow. Excellent.
Yeah, that's very practical. That happened to me at Shabbat. I'm with a new house with a bunch of family. I'm very nervous. It's very exciting, and then there's confusion. And he does the bracha on the wine, and then immediately, everybody does it different. And I'm like, I'm gonna do something wrong, right? I don't know what they want. I didn't understand the glassware they were using. And then he pours, and then he's like, pass. He just passes, and I'm like, oh no! Like, it comes right to me, like, what does he want me to, which glass, what does he want me to do? And I asked somebody, I said something, whatever, and then there was this rabbi on the other side, and he Ilanit, no, say the bracha again, and I'm just like,
do it
okay, so I said the bracha again and everything, and because you've got to take the sip right away, which I knew, but so he was watching out for me. So it's very real. It really matters.
Amazing. Wow. Okay. Wishing everyone a Shevuot Tov, and Bezrat Hashem, we will meet next week. And just everyone should have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye.